Back with another episode of Trash Talk. Today, I was so thrilled to sit down with the Squid Award winning Saint Eclectic for community contributions to the Solana ecosystem. We had an amazing chat today about not just the Degeniverse. We actually launched into talking about the Solana ecosystem as a whole and what we see is happening within the ecosystem, a new emergence of royalty and revenue sharing plays, as well as gambling, as well as Ethereum users coming into our Solana space. We did, of course, talk about what's going on behind the scenes with the Degen Apes and the Degen DAO, and then we even talked about a very special community-driven project that he has going on called Cryptograph. So make sure you stick around to the very end so that you hear about all of his thoughts and the special things that Saint is working on. Now, of course, none of this in this video should ever be construed as financial advice. We are just a couple friends sitting down talking about things that we're passionate about. You should always do your own research before investing in anything because crypto, NFTs, or investment assets have risk associated with them. So you should do what's best for you and your situation. Without further ado, here's Trash Talk, where I sat down with Saint Eclectic. Let's go. Sitting down with Saint Eclectic, the king of community and the winner of the Squid Prize. How would that? I mean, obviously, I nominated you, Saint, because you deserve it. You've been. I remember the very beginning, one of the very first threads you did was talking about a certain marketplace, and it was all about really your stance was at that point, and really since then has been about bolstering the community and protecting the community. And before we get into all the stuff, I just wanted to say congrats to you, man. You've earned it for sure. You were a great representative, not only of the apes, but of the Solana ecosystem.
Thank you, Knox. It means a lot coming from you. I was really surprised, very humbled because there are so many great contributors, again, such as yourself, bringing all of this information to the audience, and then many more across very many different communities out there. So to be recognized for that, truly very humbling and just a lot of gratitude for all the messages of support that I received. And thank you for nominating me. And, one day I hope to see you up there as well.
I think I have to get some better calls, make some better guesses, because every now and then I guess wrong, and people get really mad at me for influencing them into doing the wrong things or stuff like that. So, yeah, so maybe someday, maybe I can serve as a better ambassador to the ecosystem. And that actually brings up a good talking point. Like, we could talk about the ecosystem for a little bit and what you're seeing going on. I see two major things happening right now. We've got Ethereum's attention, and there's also a resurgence of royalty sharing and revenue sharing or utility, dividends in some form. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe we'll get to the Ethereum one a little later, but on revenue sharing, I think we've seen a huge reemergence of NFTs in this space. They kind of projects dipped their toes in the revenue sharing waters not so long ago, and they got a lot of hype. We had Meerkats doing really well out the gate, and a few other projects that had this. Solarians promised it as well at some point, but then there was some worries around regulation, right? And SEC, even though we knew that the SEC would probably never even come around to these things because they were so small. But the real pressure, from what I remember, was that FTX US was launching an NFT exchange. And
Mm-hmm.
given who their investors are, given who their backing are, which are some very large sovereign wealth funds, worth billions of dollars in terms of the assets that they hold, and they only really invest in proper companies, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
completely vetted. You could see why FTX was taking the safer route on
Mm-hmm.
this one. And as a result, they refused to list a couple of these NFT projects, and then these projects were kind of forced to sort of renege on their revenue promise. Some of them stuck to it, like Meerkats, from what I
Mm-hmm.
understand. But the damage was done at that point, and they kind of crashed. But now we're seeing a resurgence of all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Meerkat's floor was up like 150% in a couple days, and right, they had tremendous volume. They had some great sales. I think they had several sales over 50 sold, and it's because I think it's exactly what you're saying. Is that the FTX market? We expected it to launch in October and immediately just send all Solana NFTs to the moon, and that didn't really happen. I think that's in large part because FTX is still trying to build it. I think they're still trying to get feedback and build it before they actually start marketing it. But for the most part, people who are in Solana NFTs like the Web3 ecosystem that we have. They didn't want to go back to a centralized exchange. Um, and the volume never really came from FTX. So now everybody's kind of going like, well, that wasn't really an issue, was it? Let's talk about, and then that now we've got this resurgence of revenue sharing coupled with gambling, which is kind of an interesting thing.
It's crazy, right? It's almost as if revenue sharing is not a problem anymore. Authorities are not a problem. So let's go crazy and go gambling. Um, the lid's off. The gloves are off. But yeah, you're right. The volume didn't get there on FTX US, much to all of our surprises.
Mm-hmm.
I think also with FTX US, as you said, the marketing wasn't necessarily there. And then the last point was probably that most people use centralized exchanges if they are not so familiar with a decentralized world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people who are unfamiliar and not experts but want to dabble in crypto will go to centralized exchanges. And when you think about that, when it comes to NFTs, if a normal person or someone who hasn't used it before goes to a centralized exchange, looks at an NFT and sees that it's going to cost them $10,000 for the digital image, then most of them would not even go near that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a lot of us who are blockchain native are used to paying in Sol and buying
Mm-hmm.
in Sol, and that kind of is a different kind of layer. So I think that was another reason why perhaps the FTX US exchange specifically
Mm-hmm.
didn't rocket the way that we thought it would. And so after a few months, people realized that, well, maybe it's not so much of a priority to list on FTX US. And so they started going and doing more interesting and projects that kind of flirted close to the regulatory red line.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was basically it. And the second thing that we've seen emerge in the ecosystem in the Solana NFTs is a real emphasis on the word utility, right? Now, I personally think that it's a little bit of a buzzword,
Mm-hmm.
but it also is not a bad thing because what it's trying to say is that people are not going to put up anymore with just NFT launches where it's just a low effort profile picture. If
Mm-hmm.
there is some sort of utility that's attached to it, that makes it more attractive. But also, we mustn't forget that there really needs to be some real utility, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you could create a false utility or something that doesn't really live up to its standards. So we're still back to square one. It's just that the meta is really focused on utility right now, no matter what that is.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think, we see a lot of promise with that. And if I'm going to highlight one of the projects that comes to mind, the first one that comes to mind is Stoned Ape Crew with the Puff token. There's a burning mechanism. Pretty much every time you spend the Puff token to do something, it burns the Puff token, which is pretty fascinating. And
Mhm.
you'll even be able to pay for your merch in Puff token. So if you think about that, it's basically free merch. You buy the NFT and then you have the NFT, and that's got asset and value on its own. But then they're going to airdrop you the token for nothing that you can then exchange and burn for merch. And that's actually a pretty interesting real world utility. Is now they actually have built in marketing and branding, because I can go out in the world and be like, look, I'm part of this crew. Yeah, and I'm wearing my Degen.
Mhm.
This shirt, by the way, is amazing. This is embroidered for anyone who's watching, and it's really soft. I was really caught off guard by the quality of this shirt.
Yeah, the quality was fantastic, and
Yeah.
if you stood up and turned around, people would see the art on the back of that shirt, which is fantastic as well. The quality was great. As you said, it was embroidered. I managed to get mine, so it's a great plug for the dev team who have put that together. But
Yep.
back to your point on Stone Apes, yeah, I think that's an interesting piece of utility, right? Because as you say, you get the NFT and you get free merch, and you can use the Puff token to sell it. Now, the thing with utility and a coin is that it can be a double-edged sword sometimes. So if you're an NFT and you release a coin, if you don't have real use for it, real utility, that coin's going to zero tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because people
Mm-hmm.
will automatically swap it on a decentralized exchange for USDC or
Mm-hmm.
Solana. because they got the coin for free. So
Hmm.
as long as they can turn it to money, why not?
Hmm.
But if they can turn it into merch, then that adds one layer of utility. Now, I don't
Hmm.
necessarily think that's going to be the be all and end all because merch is going to run out at some point.
Yeah.
So, from what I understand, you can use it to pay for other services and products and goods as well. So maybe
Yep.
that's
I just
something
jumped
that's,
to merch first because that's the thing that like I gravitate to. That's my personal preference. Is I'm a merchaholic,
Mhm,
so that's just what I just went to. I Yeah, there's a bunch of other things they're going to use it for.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's a great question you ask because even when we participate on the Degen DAO, right?
Hmm.
We're always being asked when DAO token. You know, you see Bored Ape are doing something like that as well.
Hmm.
And for us to do that, first we would need to set ourselves up as a legal entity, provide a liability shield for the DAO members. And then after that, you would think about releasing the token. But then again, you wouldn't want to release a token unless there's real utility. Otherwise, it's going to zero. It will look bad on the project, and it will be a negative cost for the
Yep.
project.
Yep. And we do have the Panda token coming, which is used within the P2E game. And there's a lot, and actually, like the last interview we did on the very last episode of Trash Talk was with Pitt, where he went into details, a lot of details, about what that Panda token and how the game is going to work, the burning mechanisms, the earning mechanisms, and it was pretty fascinating. There's actually going to be a huge amount of utility there that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what it is, right? Because games is always the next thing that blockchain is looking to be integrated with. A lot of people are trying to do it with, full-blown studio quality type of games, and that's going to
Hmm.
take years to make. And that's not a wrong approach. I mean, who knows? Star Atlas could be fantastic, right?
Hmm.
I'm expecting it to be great. But the one cool thing, at least with the Degen Trash Panda, is that it's a much simpler thing, right? It's a game that's played on the blockchain, probably on a website, and there'll be a token that supports it. So, in similar ways to the merch example that you gave with Stone Ape, now you will be able to use your token for utility, but in a game that's theoretically going to be accessible very soon.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I just found out, speaking of, like the Atlas token is the in game currency for Star Atlas. I just realized like 2 days ago that you could actually stake your ship and get
Wow.
Atlas tokens for that.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. Speaking of staking and utility, I think that's the next frontier, right? Staking NFTs to get
Hmm.
something. And you don't even need to rely on the project itself. You could rely on a different protocol. So I think there's a protocol out there on Solana called Honey.
Hmm.
And from what I understand, it's borrowing and lending against NFTs. They're only just launching now, but you can stake some of your NFTs on there and get access to some tokens, which will later be swapped for free IDO tokens.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, from what I've seen, there's a few projects on that. Crypto Pets is one of them, and there's a few others.
Yeah, there was pesky penguins, but so that was a limited time offer. I think Rogue Sharks was the same thing.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
So there you go. It's adding a little bit more utility to the NFTs. But
Hmm.
I actually thought about that as well, Knox. That presents an interesting dilemma because some projects will want you to keep your NFT in your wallet
Hmm.
to have a chance of an airdrop, to have some kind of reward. But if you're off staking it somewhere to get tokens from somewhere else, you're going to have to do a bit of a trade-off. So it's an interesting way these things are developing now.
But isn't it fascinating that they have in beta right now a smart contract where the NFT no longer leaves your wallet? It's the stateless request, is what it's called. There are a couple marketplaces out there that have already implemented this. I think Digital Eyes was one of them. Moonverse is one of them, and then there's one more. I think it's like Arts.NFT. I can't remember. I'll have to look it up. But the idea, and Soulflare told me in a DM that they're working on a one-click button where it lists your NFT at all of these marketplaces because it never leaves your wallet in the first place. So
Amazing.
now it is amazing, and now I'm like, oh, that would give my NFT immediate access to the entire liquidity of the ecosystem, not just one marketplace, because only people at Magic Eden are shopping on Magic Eden. They're not also at
Mhm.
Solar and all these other places. So now, if I listed at all these places, to me, it actually seems like it would get somehow competitive for the marketplaces to like lower their fees or something. I don't know. I got to think about that more.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what's the point of listing it on a certain exchange or a smart contract if
Mhm.
you could go to one that's cheaper,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly. And or who's going to shop on certain marketplaces when the supply is all the same? What's
Exactly.
the difference from one marketplace to the next? Because
Yeah.
everybody's listed everywhere.
I
So
can't, I actually can't wait for that to happen. I mean, I'm sure there are some technical elements that I need to wrap my head around properly that I don't understand right now. But,
mhm,
if the promise is something like, let's say an OpenSea, but it's not OpenSea, but it's literally any exchange.
mhm,
And people can even bid on your NFT without you having listed it. That's going to
mhm,
make a big difference to the ecosystem because right now you can't do that.
right.
And often I find people coming going, hey, do you know who the owner of this Degen ape is? Do you know who the owner of this Solana monkey business is? All this Thugbird. So it will hopefully add a little bit more volume into the market too.
Exactly. And like with SNS lookup. So that's the thing, right? If the NFT doesn't leave your wallet, then it stays in your wallet. And if you have a .sol domain, that .sol domain links to your Twitter account. So if you've gone through the process of setting that up, there's nothing to stop these marketplaces from saying, "Hey, this NFT is listed right now. It's in this wallet and that wallet is tied to this Twitter account." So you can DM them back and forth, work out an offer or something. I just start like thinking about this is exactly how OpenSea is set up right now, right? The NFT doesn't leave your wallet. It does have the
Hmm.
Twitter account posted on the profile.
Hmm.
Like it, I just that's one place that Ethereum has us beat is that their marketplace has that level of flexibility. And now there's no longer, hey, delist if you need great protocol access or delist if you need an airdrop. Like it's delist to join the DAO. Like it's just in your wallet all the time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it just opens up a lot of possibilities.
Yeah.
Actually, it'd be interesting as well how it interacts with DAO access, because as you know, if you list your token right now into an exchange, you automatically lose your Discord access into, let's say,
Hmm.
the Degen DAO or the Monkey DAO or the Thug DAO. So if this gets around that, then that would be helpful for people as well, because they could
Hmm.
stay connected to the DAO until their NFT actually sells.
Yeah. I think this is actually going to be a huge game changer. And with these mobile solutions that are coming out now, like a one tap mobile solution where I can just list an NFT on all marketplaces instantaneously. I'm really excited for these types of protocol developments in Solana NFTs in general. I think it's going to significantly reduce friction for trading NFTs in Solana.
Oh yeah. Actually, already the Phantom wallet itself reduced friction for use of Solana all the way back in, let's say, I think it was July or late July
Mhm,
when it came online. So for it to go into mobile and then have all of these little benefits like being able to, I think select or send multiple NFTs at once, all
mhm,
that user interface simplification is really what's holding back the next wave and the next wave and the next wave, right? You know, it's like trying to get your uncle, your aunt, or your mum to go in, but as soon as they are hit with what I've got to fund this, and then I've got to set this browser plugin, and it's got to be all easy in one click. And people often say in the future, and I truly believe this is the way to go as well. You don't even know you're on the blockchain. You literally just have a wallet, and you plug it in or you click it in, and off you go, right?
yep. And I think that's what Web3 brings to the table is people know that this currency that we're dealing with is called Sol or whatever you want to call it. It's not USD. But outside of that, they don't really need to know any of the technical nitty gritty details. They need to click buy and then click approve, and then it's done. And I think that's ultimately where we're headed, right? That's why we're so bullish on Web3 and so bullish on Solana.
Yeah, exactly. And what it means for the end user, because Web3
Mm-hmm.
is for the end user, for communities, and it's there to serve them, right? It's
Yeah.
not a product that's tailored to show ads to you. It's not a product that's tailored to get a certain reaction for you to look at some kind of article or anything like that. It really is. This is what I need, and this is how I do it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
it might take a little longer because it's more consensus driven. It requires people to build without necessarily a profit motive, or not as high a profit motive, and they might not have the same level of resources that some of the Web 2 companies obviously did when they scaled up.
Mm-hmm.
But it is just that next level of freedom, and I haven't felt this way since the I since Web 1.
Yeah.
when I found out what the internet was.
Hmm.
And somewhere along the line, I kind of lost that in the 2000s. And here it is again. So that's
Yeah.
why I'm so excited about it.
I couldn't agree more. Like, this really does make me, when I think about the journey of Web 1 to 2 to 3, like, I feel like, oh, like when we say we're early, we actually are early because this is so obvious to us who are using it every day that, like, this is just where things are going. That
Hmm.
it's only going to be a few years until, like, this is just worldwide mass adoption. The next generation, for sure, this is going to be the way that they conduct online commerce. I just believe that.
Yeah, it was Alexis Ohanian who said at the Solana Breakpoint conference that Web 2 will be seen as a blip,
Yeah,
essentially.
a
Uh,
transition period.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm not entirely against Web 2. I think, there were a lot of strides that were made with Web 2. It's just that it's just a lot less exciting, isn't it, than
Hmm.
than the possibilities of Web 3.
Yeah, I mean, we had to connect people together first before we could enable commerce between them. But now we see, like, truly power in the hands of the people. I think that's the best way to put it. Is that, we the people can make our own markets and drive our own demand and our own supply, and it's just an efficient usage of capital, which I think is, for me as an econ major, I'm really excited about that.
You big nerd, mate, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Super nerdy. Okay, so speaking of clicking buy and then clicking accept, the Degen Ape sales bot went off a few hours ago with a $300,000 purchase.
Yes, yes. So there are 10,000 of our tokens of the Degen Ape Academy, and this happened to be the fourth rank token. It was a astronaut ape, and it had a cigar. So here you have an ape that's smoking a cigar inside his astronaut helmet, which is really degenerate, if you ask me. But yes, it belonged to one of our prominent community members, and I think as with all things in life, at some point we've got to liquidate, and we might need some liquidity. And so he decided now was the time. But it was pretty exciting that someone snapped it up. It's a very popular ape.
Yeah, and it's a that's a hell of a sale. It's still, it still to me shows how much demand there is for the high tier apes. When they're all grabbing six digits, no problem. I think that's a real. I mean, and they deserve it, right? They look really cool. They are ultra rare, and it's just I get excited when I see these big sales happening. These astronaut apes have done really well in the past 30 days.
Hmm. There were other ones which went for around 3,000 sol, right? So this one, I guess you could say, was a discount at
Hmm.
around 2,000 sol. I think it went for 1.9. And I think you're right. I think this is an example of where you have the scarce asset thesis playing out, right? Because there's only 10,000 of these things. As we well know, Degen Apes were one of the sort of earlier projects, so they've got provenance to that regard. Provenance hasn't saved them from their floor dropping and halving over time, from its heights of 100 or so sol, but it is held up relatively well. And even in the meta of everyone focusing on utility and a whole bunch of other things, right? And gambling and all these like fun new things and 20,000 other mints happening a day, uh, there is still demand and there is still payment that will go and recognition for this kind of provenance. Right.
Hmm.
I'm not saying that it's always going to be this way, and we certainly hope and believe it will be. But it's true that some of these key collections really do hold some of their value, and it's playing out now, six
Yeah,
months later.
but that's also not to say that nothing is going on, right? Things are happening behind the scenes. Stuff is getting built.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the dev team have been building a website. That much everyone knows, and they've been working on the breeding program for the next generation. And from what I understand, there are a few degen apes who are testing that and are beta testing that. So I think they're all under some kind of NDA, so they can't really reveal what the details are. But
Hmm.
they've basically told me, yeah, it's pretty amazing, pretty awesome.
Hmm.
So again, it's one of these things where to build something of quality with a thoughtful approach and get it right, it does take time. And for the better or worse, it's taken dinosaur years in crypto land and NFT land for Degen Ape Academy to build stuff. Um, so that I think also has held the price down a little bit relative to when all these funny, great, amazing, shiny new objects are popping off around you in terms of other NFTs.
But you and I have both spoken with Monolith directly, and we know that he's not the type of builder who is. He doesn't care about the hype and what they're chasing today. What he cares about is building a supreme product for ultimate long term branding and market positioning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why every decision has been made carefully. You see that the brand has been built slowly. They don't kind of make a lot of rash and random decisions and moves. When they're building for the infrastructure for the next generation, it's taken time. Even the Degen Trash Panda collection took a long time for them to iterate the art on that. And they are still working on the game to get all the various things done there. And then, even the other example that you gave on the merch being high quality, right? It could have been very easily put together in a week or a month, and but you would compromise on the quality and ability to get it out globally to all the degenerate apes out there. So they
Mm-hmm.
really took their time with that one. And as with most things, right? There's always going to be delays, but they're building it properly. And
Yeah,
they're really focusing on the brand. And as we said before, there is a whole legal structure behind it. Many projects are just, 4 to 10 guys without much of this sort of legal backing and protection over the IP all being thought out. And so I think what they've done there is great, at least on the Solana blockchain.
yeah. My investment thesis for the Degen Ape Academy has always been centered around the intellectual property and the ability to market it towards not just mass people, but also institutions and mass corporations who would want to partner with it. And while I don't have any direct knowledge about this, I believe that those conversations, at least somewhere out there, these mass people or these mass corporations, I believe just by pure hunch alone that we have their attention. That they're if somebody were to come in and look at the Solana ecosystem, they would pick the Degen Ape Academy as, oh, that's the art style and culture and community that we want to develop on top of, that we want to partner with. And that's always been my investment thesis for the Degen Ape Academy. And I think I'm 90% certain that Monolith has the same vision for a long term market branding play here.
Yeah, I would say that. Definitely, that's the case. And also, it's one of the most visible brands when it comes to the Solana blockchain, right? Again, Solana is still so relatively small versus Ethereum, but it's got a lot of the people's attention now, especially after 5, 6xing over the last 6, 7, 8 months, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so people recognize the Degen apes because they were so early and because the art is good. And when you say, there's got to be corporations or institutions or some of the big boys and girls out there looking at it, I believe that that is the case too, right? Because there are a lot of working professionals that are actually exploring this. And if you look at it, there was actually also a newspaper article in the South China Morning Post, one of the most read newspapers in Hong Kong, which highlighted the DAA Hong Kong billboard that
Mm-hmm.
they took a snap of. And in that, they said a couple of comments. It's quite funny because they interviewed one of the members and they said Burger Bob told us this. Uh, and Bob's not his real name; it's his nickname for his ape because it's an ape eating a burger.
Mm-hmm.
But they were saying how companies and investors in Hong Kong were paying big bucks to advertise their NFTs because that billboard that they were on, that wraparound billboard, is actually one of the most, if not the most, expensive piece of advertising screen in Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
and
that's not cheap.
no, absolutely not. And Hong Kong is one of the most expensive cities in the world to live in. So to advertise in it would be insane.
Yeah.
That really caught the attention there, and definitely, in my view, that there's definitely corporations and companies out there that might potentially consider it. Not to my knowledge if they actually are, but that would be part of the thesis that I would hope to play out.
Hmm. Yeah. I, that's just what I think. I think you think the same thing. I think a lot of people who are investing in Degen Ape Academy feel the same thing. But outside of the investment, the investment thesis of it, when I think of the investment thesis, I think of core development team, Monolith and Conga, who are building the brand and iterating and developing. But outside of that, there is also this extraordinary community component. And this is, I think, the part that actually gets slept on the most when you're on CT or whatever, and people are talking about Solana NFTs. The community of the Degen Ape Academy, when you peel the curtain back and join the DAO, that's the part that actually caught me off guard the most. And this was actually the thing that made me go, oh, I can actually be myself here. I can actually
Mhm.
tear down these walls.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the tricky things, it's sometimes it's a curse and a blessing. It's a blessing because when people are in it and they experience it, they become the loudest champions, like yourself
Mm-hmm.
and I, right?
Yeah.
It's such a fun place to hang out, right? Again, maybe it's COVID and we all need to hang out at home a little bit more, but it is a lot of fun to hang out. The curse side of things is that if you're not in it, then it's very foreign to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
It seems scary. It's like, what is this? Some kind of cult? Like, what are people talking about? And then Discord is not the most user-friendly thing or beginner-friendly platform for people to connect with the community. Once you learn how to do that, though, it really does become a fantastic place to be. And the reason is because, as you said, I was very lucky to win that Solana Squid Prize, right? But when I look back on some of the stories that I wrote, I realized that as a community, we actually did so much,
Yeah.
right? That most people don't really know about, right? Like when it came to the launch of the Degen Trash Panda, we were able to mobilize a movement, not across just our community, but others, to make sure that the price was bid at a very low price, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that we could maximize participation by people who didn't even have these things. Now, it didn't really help the dev team out, and and the sympathies are there, and that it really shouldn't have gone for that low, but it was a great showing of the community. Then the second thing was that launch got botted by a community member. And what happened next was that the community went and investigated everything. They looked at the transactions on the blockchain because everything is public on blockchain, and they traced it through. And we worked as a team to find out who it was. And we did that on Thanksgiving. I remember working with a few different people in different parts of the community, and then we worked very quickly to remove this person from the community, which would not have happened if there wasn't such a good community. And then the last thing we did was I wrote a thread on it, to just get that information out there, be transparent, and share with everyone, right? And
Mm-hmm.
one of the most heartening things I actually heard from someone who sent me a message was that, look, he wasn't part of the Degen Ape community, but when he read how we handled that situation, how we at least communicated and was very transparent about it, that was something that he'd never really seen that much of out there, especially even with other DAOs. And so when I think about it, all of these things are kind of really crazy, wild stories. They're experiences, they're lived drama, so to speak. And a lot of people miss that because they're not in the Discord, they're not necessarily plugged in. But once you're plugged in, once you give it a go, once you have a chance to buy an ape or a trash panda and you come in and talk to us, you're part of this, and it's really exciting.
I think that's an interesting thing about the community is, just to kind of highlight how we own how we fuck up a lot because it's a very degen thing is to do it. But I think that also is a thing about this community, and I don't mean to like throw shade on any other communities or anything, but this community is pretty mature. That when it's time to get serious and be humble or humiliated or something like that, they do. And when it's time to get to work and fix the problems, they do. And I really appreciate that and respect that about the Degen apes.
Yeah, look, I think, for whatever reason, the Degen Ape Academy tends to have quite a bit of working professionals or professionals, like yourself, and people in like lawyers, bankers, everywhere, marketing, all walks of life in tech, in sales. And so when we do need to be serious, we can be
Hmm.
because we have that base. But at the same time, most of the time we're just chilling and having fun, teasing each other and giving each other a lot of shit, which is great. And so that to me, that's what I enjoy about the community. I can really be myself, but there are actual brains that work and get things done.
Yeah, I mean, my brain is mathematic and science oriented, very logic and workflow oriented. And one of the things that really impresses me about the Degen community is the creatives. Those are things that I could never do, ever. And we have like dozens of people who are just extraordinarily good at creating amazing things. We see it every single week with Create. And, to me, it just shows how diverse this community actually is. And it's not just that it's a diverse group, it's that it's diverse but people who really excel at whatever walk of life that they've been through.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, wow, the creatives actually blow my mind. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen some videos that people have put together, and it makes me want to hire them for whatever I want to do in future, right? It's just so slick and it's professionally done, and they do it really quickly. I think anyone that's listening who hasn't seen it, you have to jump to the Degen at Degen DAOO on Twitter, and you'll see some of these videos interlaced with the posts. So that's yeah, they definitely there's definitely a ton of talent there. The other thing I will say, Knox, to your point about us being able to be adults at times and get along with it, is that we actually big news for people listening is that this week we restructured the student council,
Mm-hmm.
which is the fancy name for the people that help run the DAO organization, and you, Knox, were one of the ones that have been elevated to a student council member. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. I was actually going to bring this up next and talk about what this was all about.
Good. Well, there you go. Good segue. I segued before you could.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I mean the content that you put out there, the education pieces on Solana, not just DJ Apes, and also the other NFT communities that you're a great champion for. Be it on Twitter, be it in videos, makes a real big difference. And I think that is something that we really value as a community because it benefits us as DJ Apes. But if I was to summarize what all this means, all it means is that we had a couple of members who had in real life things to focus on, as we all do. Eventually, one point in time, we're going to come in and come out depending on what we need to do. And so we needed to add a few more people to the organization, and we actually restructured into functional roles. So one of these things working in the community and a DAO, which I find fascinating, was uh, when we were thinking about how do we structure this, and I worked with Degen Service, who's another member, to strategize on how do we sort of structure for growth. We realized that it's almost as if you're making your own company,
Mm-hmm.
really. And then
Mm-hmm.
suddenly we were organizing along marketing lines, along partnership lines with other projects, along someone responsible for content, and that's where you come in with a couple of other guys. And then other things like building utility and value, right? Do we consider a token? How do we go about looking into legalizing the DAO and things like that?
Mm-hmm.
So we needed people to step into those roles, come onto the council so that they could actually have a vote, and then they would feel empowered to do what they were partly already doing before. And it's just injected a whole lot of energy into the DAO.
I have often said that this is probably the best structure for a decentralized NFT project that you could possibly have, where you have the dev team. They have to exist to be true leaders for the entire brand and all of the things that are being created. And we have that. And separate from that is the community efforts. These are the people who have bought into the brand and want to fulfill their part. But this divide, like there is a chasm between those two because the dev teams on any NFT project are very, very small, sometimes only two people. And the community could be 20,000 people. So there has to be some form of buffer or translators between them while also determining, like, can we handle these initiatives ourselves or the dev team? Do they need to take over and look at this? And I think like this is a very smart structure.
Yeah, with the dev team, what sits naturally with them is the branding, the development around the tech, and the breeding and that sort of thing, because they will drive that. They own that brand, they own that IP,
Hmm.
right? But then part of what they sold to us was an NFT where we take the IP of the ape itself. It might not be the logo that we take the IP of or the name, but we take the IP of the ape that we hold, right? And that's why it's such an interesting model. And so we become part owners by owning one of these NFTs. And
Hmm.
that is why NFTs give people such high level of engagement, because you own something.
Hmm.
And yes, it's a picture, so it looks nice. You relate to that. But because you own that token, you feel more compelled to do things. And like you said, the holders of the Degen apes, I think probably close to about 4,000 now. That's
Hmm.
a huge workforce. Even if you utilize 10% of that, or even 5%, that's 200 people, right? That's a lot of people that can help do things,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
And so you might as well coordinate to do things for the community. And as a community, you can move a little faster because A, you got resources, and B, you are not as subject to some of the legal issues that the dev team have to look at. Now,
Hmm.
going forward, we might, if we do incorporate, and if we want to do more interesting things like launch a token, or launch an investment pad, which I don't necessarily think we're going to do, but these are things to think about. But in general, we can move a little faster.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And for the people who are listening, I certainly hope you see the same thing that we see in the Degen Ape Academy. If you're curious about it, I certainly hope you explore it. And I think what you'll find out really quickly is that we are an insanely engaged community. We feel very passionately about the Degen Apes for a reason. Not financial advice, but I do think it's good to have a Degen ape in your wallet. But if you don't, and if you're not going to, but you still manage to be watching Degen TV today, just keep in mind that whatever NFTs you hold, you do have the power to contribute to that project and put in just a tiny amount of effort to further the entire brand because you are a part owner of this company, of this NFT project when you do. And
Yeah.
and that will further your value. So whether you're a monkey or a bird or a dazed duck or a stoned ape or a baby ape or whatever project it is that's minting today that you're going to FOMO into, if you actually hold it and involve yourself in it, the entire ecosystem benefits from that. Because even if like the Degen apes, if we did nothing else from here on, but the monkeys do amazing things and they bring in Ethereum users, then guess what? Eventually those people will stumble onto the Degen apes. Now, of course, the Degen apes are doing stuff, but that's my point. Just bolstering your own project rather than flipping it and going on to the next mint, you can actually do really good things for the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one point to add on that from the Degen ape front, for those who might be listening but don't have a panda or an ape, is that just yesterday we opened up a public channel now in the Degen DAO. Now it's very confusing for people because there are several Discords. There is the DAA Dev Team Discord. There is the Degen Trash Panda Discord. But the main one to focus on is the Degen DAO Discord. And now we've opened up a public channel. So even if you don't have one of these things, you can come in and say hi and get a sense of the community and who you speak with now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Just know that if nobody replies to you, it's probably because they're in Mint Squad.
Too busy minting and trying to they're not listening to Knox's advice to focus
Yeah,
in on their core NFT. They're just minting. But
yeah,
that's part of the fun and experience
that's
too.
yeah. Well,
So
that's part of the degen culture. Like I could keep saying these things a million times over, but at the end of the day, Solana is just full of degens, and
oh,
and,
totally.
I'm just the old crotchety guy saying, "You dumb kids."
Yeah, you're the old crotchety guy who's invested across some really good NFT projects, especially new ones. So I think you know what you're doing.
I really do like we had an amazing set of mints in August, and then we had an amazing set of mints in December. Like
Yeah,
there were some newcomers in December that I'm really excited about. So I really hope that those projects don't get dumped because of FOMO mints because everybody's really excited about how December went. But I'm nervous. I'm scared. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I'm like, "Urgh."
Yeah,
please.
I hope they don't either. I think, the risk and what we've seen in the last few months is that maybe adoption for Solana has slowed slightly, right?
Hmm.
Versus the gold rush that we saw in August and September.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so capital is, rather than coming in, there is still definitely capital coming in, but more of the NFT capital is rotating between what's next and what's hot and what's new.
Hmm.
So once we get more people coming in, a rising tide will lift all boats, which is
Hmm.
why I'm always a big proponent of being positive. And whenever someone posts from ETH or other chains that they're looking at NFTs, teach them, try and educate them, do God's work, do what Knox does, you
But
know?
don't. But just don't shill your bags, please. Be honest and open. Like everybody knows that I'm not a fan of pixel art, but when an ETH user comes to me, the first project I tell them about is SMB. Like it's just what it is. And then I say like, okay, like that's SMB. Now we got to talk about Degen apes. We got to talk about Genesis Go. We're gonna talk about all of these. We're gonna talk about Boryoku dragons. I'm gonna tell you about all of these projects, but you should know that everybody is going to gravitate towards SMB first. Like, and that's just because that's the unbiased truth.
Yeah, I think it's always good to give people a lay of the landscape. You will never ever get away from the bias of your own bags, and I can admit to that as well. But giving them a holistic view is good. Then they can choose for themselves, right? And then let's face it. I mean, if they're in crypto, they're probably degens anyway, so they'll end up as
Mm.
apes. But
Yeah, I know
yeah,
that's exactly it. Like I just want to get them into the ecosystem. And then once they're here, they'll probably figure out, especially if they're coming from ETH, where they've been doing this for 9 months already, they're going to figure it out. They're going to get the lay
mhm,
of the land in 2 or 3 weeks and go from there. But we just want to get them in. And most importantly, in safe investments that are also fun to engage
mhm,
with. I'm not going
mhm.
to tell anybody, like, hey, this is going to mint tomorrow. You should go mint. Like, because I don't fucking know what's going to happen with those.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like that's why I always gravitate towards just look, what are the OG NFTs? Whether or not they deserve to be there, you might argue yes or no. But the fact is that they're there and they
Mhm,
have strong communities. Some of them 1,000 people, 2,000. We're like 3 to 4,000. But there is history and there is
mhm,
structure, and there is success, and these are the ones I think that will sustain. So it's going to be your first one if you can afford that entry. Try that route, right?
mhm. Yep. I couldn't agree more. And I am excited for this like new wave of Ethereum users who are like tearing down their walls slowly and dipping their toes in the Solana water. I mean,
Yeah,
their response is unanimous. Like, oh, that was a nice experience. The transaction was instant. And those of us who have been doing this for like 7 months now kind of laugh and be like, yeah, we know. Like, but you forget what it felt like to have that first click accept and like 3 seconds later it's done. You forgot what
yeah.
that felt like.
Sometimes even 3 seconds, I'm like, come on, man, it's slow. I want it in 1 second. What's going on? Occasionally, I think there've been a little bit of congestion as well on the Solana network, and then I remember, okay, don't complain because otherwise this would be costing me $100. Um, you know, but look, ETH is great for a whole host of other reasons, and I do have still ETH NFTs, and I love them very much. So
Mm-hmm.
I just don't get to visit them very often because no real reason to transact as much as I used to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tried. I went on an Ethereum podcast last week with Franklin, and I said like I believe that this is going to be a three-chain world, the same way we have
Hmm.
Windows, iOS, and Android. Like
Hmm.
I think there's going to be Solana, Ethereum, and probably AVAX, maybe Cardano, as much as I hate to admit it. But like I think that's just what's going to happen, and there's just a place for everybody and a different use case for everybody here. So I try to let Ethereum users know up front, I'm not a maxi. I'm not trying to steal your money. I want you to come and try Solana because we all believe in it for a reason. And I want you to have, most importantly, a safe and enjoyable time while you're here.
Hmm.
Like, and if you decide you don't like it, then go back to Ethereum, cool. But I don't want you to get rugged. I don't want you to experience a mint that got botted. Like, I just want you to join a community and see the Solana vibes, Solana season, Solana summer that we all
Hmm.
do.
Oh yeah, I mean, the I. I'd say this and I really meant it. When I got some of those really nice messages from people about the award, uh, so there's nothing like Solana. I mean, the community for some reason tend to be more positive than not, and it was just very easy to get good feedback from people early on up until now. And that makes you want to be more engaged and happy. And it's not just Degen Apes, it's across all different NFT platforms and projects, right?
Mhm.
Stoned Apes, like the new ones you were talking about, the Baby Apes Club, they're also excitable. Days Ducks, everyone is really quite positive.
Yep.
And I'm sure you get that as well on Ethereum, but it just feels a little bit more welcoming at times. And that's why I've sort of built my work around here for the last 5 months.
Yeah. Yeah. These new projects that, I feel like we, just like I said, how we had these August mints where we had monkeys, apes, thugbirds solidified and built the August Solana culture. I kind of feel that culture coming again from these December mints, like Stoned Apes, Baby Apes, Catalina Whales, even Taiyo
Mm,
Robotics, who's making a comeback.
hmm
I feel that inviting spirit again. And that's why I'm like, okay, community, Solana, please don't let them die. Please don't dump them
Yeah.
because they are also ambassadors for what we're trying. And Days Ducks, they are also ambassadors for what we're trying to do. They belong
Yeah.
here.
I think in those projects you probably have quite a few new people. There have been a lot of new people that I've seen, first timers over there.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a lot of recycled capital, as I mentioned before,
Mm-hmm.
but there are many newcomers. I think the other thing that you're getting with this next wave of projects is that people are starting to get it now. They're
Mm-hmm.
starting to understand that everyone can see a cash grab, can see a low
Mm-hmm.
effort project. And so the art is a lot better on all these things, and they focus a lot more on community building. You see it with, the Stone Apes. I put a tweet out there the other day just to say, hey, what are the most engaged communities? And I got absolutely bombed by them. So I
Mm-hmm.
was quite impressed by that. So I think people are starting to understand how what might succeed, right?
Mm-hmm.
We still don't know; it's still very early. But what will succeed better than the stuff that we saw in September and October and part of November?
Yeah. Yeah. Completely agree. Now you have a very interesting community project that you're working on, right? Cryptograph. Tell me about that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, you know me, I've always been about community, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've always said that that is the best way to anchor your project and support your project. And so, me and a few friends from real life who've known each other for almost 10 years now, we decided to put something together, and we've been working on it over the last 2 months. It's a community-oriented and focused project. It's called Cryptograph, GRAF, and that's because it's inspired by art, street art, graffiti, and NFT communities.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're doing, while it is an NFT project, and there is an NFT and we have an artist all behind that, the main feature is this interactive pixel canvas that we want to bring people to come together, communities to come together, represent, and paint on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that excites me because, if you have the NFT, you can paint on it. You run out of paint after a little while, though, right? And it replenishes slowly over time. So you can't dominate part of the pixel canvas unless you actually work together with
Mm-hmm.
people. And so what we've been doing is reaching out to communities out there to see, like, would you come in force and put down a DJ Nape's face, or a monkey's face, or even a Tire Robotics, or on the canvas. That's what we're looking for, because Solana, as we were talking about before, is a celebration of really positive communities, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
want this to be the first collective expression of the Solana ecosystem.
Mm. That's really cool. I love that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, like, what the other part of it as well is, so, of course, we will probably get some penises drawn on it.
Yeah. Well,
That's
you
the
got
whole
the
point.
DJ Ape, so yeah.
Exactly, exactly. That's the whole point of being a decentralized artist, right? But it's a pretty cool idea. But after 1 week or two, we haven't finalized what it will be. We will take a snapshot of the Genesis canvas, as we call it. We will turn that into an NFT. We will fractionalize it, and we will send it to the people that contributed to the canvas. So You were part of the canvas, you drew it, it was your effort, and now you own part of it.
So it is like a graffitied wall
Exactly.
where everybody can come by and paint on this wall and then get this token of memorial that says like, "Hey, I was there at that time when that happened. I
Exactly.
was I was around."
And you painted on it. So you own part of it. It's like painting something on the Berlin Wall and then like breaking a piece of it off and taking it away with you.
Wow. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So where can I go to find out more?
Yeah. So you can find us on Twitter at cryptograph. So that's at crypto graf underscore art,
Mhm.
ART. And then you can drop me a line on Twitter, and I'm happy to send you a link of the Discord. We're just starting up. It's going very slowly. The interesting thing for us is that our artist has been painting and graffitiing all his life. And so the art is very detailed. We've spent months iterating it. But the funny thing about him is that he actually spent a little time in trouble with the authorities in the UK. So he was behind bars for a little while because of he was caught tagging a train.
Was it
Uh,
Banksy?
no, I wish. I wish we would all have gone to the moon by now if that was the case. But no, he's still a very talented artist, and he also I think can't enter one of the countries in Asia because he didn't get caught then, but I think his picture was on a camera somewhere. So he wears that as a badge of honor. And I'm really excited for people to start seeing the art. We already have a couple of sneak peeks as well, and in your typical NFTs, you tend to have one base, and then you have many different traits of that one base. I think we're putting together 6 bases for this one. So
Oh, wow, cool.
yeah, so two sort of more common ones, and then 4 sort of special ones to pay homage to artists out there. And so yeah, it's exciting for us because it's really about like the art, the community. Look, at the end of the day, this won't work if there is no community that comes to participate. We want people to come to participate. So over the next few weeks, we'll be ramping up. I haven't really told the community and the apes yet too much about it. I want them to find out a little slowly, um, and once it's ready, we'll get going. But I really hope that people sort of enjoy it. We were talking about utility and everything before, right? I guess you could say there's some utility in this in terms of a canvas, but I don't want to overpromise. I think sometimes roadmaps are overblown anyway, and utility can be a buzzword. So really, this is about the art, the experience, and bringing communities together. And I hope people really do that because I don't think we've actually had anything yet where it's a huge mural of all the different positive communities in Solana saying hi and writing their name or putting a picture of their favorite NFT. And wouldn't that be cool to see after the 6 months we've
I
had?
think it's so cool. I think it's so cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
I would love that.
Well, we'll see. Let's see how it goes. We're working up to it, and I'm excited to see how it all goes.
Yeah, if you're listening and you actually believe in Solana and Solana's community, which you damn well better, you should probably go follow Cryptograph and get involved with that because this really is what sets us apart from the other chains, you guys. It really is. And these kinds of community initiatives it's simple to do. It's something we should do.
Yeah, because people and communities are what keeps these things going. That's how we build, right? And that's
Mhm.
how we sustain through the good times or the bear market. We are sustaining by the people and the communities. And if you think about where we go back to before about Web3, Web3 is built for communities. Web3 is built for people. The end product, it has us in mind, rather than having profits in mind, or advertising or that sort of thing. So that's what this celebrates, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Well, again, man, congrats on the Squid Award, and this is so exciting to be a part of the student council and being a contributor to the progress of the Degen Apes and the Degen DAO. I know we're going to do some amazing things over the next year. So, you got anything you want to sign off with?
No, I mean, you said it best, right? It's just a very exciting and bright future. for the Degen DAO, for the Solana ecosystem. I think the markets don't really paint that picture right now, but if you are patient and you do believe in the potential of blockchain, and we see it out there, right? That's something to be excited about.
Hmm.
And one of the things, Knox, I'll say this, one of the things that appealed to us about graffiti was that, back in the day, it used to be misunderstood. It used to be reviled. But then look what it became with
Hmm.
street murals. It's very celebrated. It's a great way for the communities to express themselves all around the world.
Hmm.
In the same way with blockchain, it's still misunderstood. It's still reviled in some cases, but we've seen such amazing global adoption over the last year, right? As more use cases come out with DeFi and NFTs, the parallels are both there. The focus on community is both there for those
Hmm.
things, and so to me, that's really exciting. And I'm excited for Web3. So let's see how we go. And yeah, that's it.
Cool. Me too, man. I think we actually are going to make it.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Thank you all for stopping by and listening to our trash talk. We are going to be trying to do this every week as long as life doesn't get in the way. We may have different guests, cycle them in and out. Saint, you are always welcome to jump by whenever you want. I know time zones are different and tricky, but this has been another amazing chat. And I just love talking about the Solana ecosystem in general, talking about the Degeniverse with you. And I think what you got going on with Cryptograph is really cool. So,
Uh,
go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm very excited, and let's see some apes get there.
Yeah, bring it on. All right, guys. Thank you all for stopping by. We will see you in the next one.